Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Sports Wilderness. I'm Wandering Moses. Thank you for listening. Today we're going to discuss, we had started last week with the conversation about what constitutes greatness, but I'd like to move on to something a little more concrete. As you know, the wintertime is really slow in baseball, but one thing that has going for it is the Hall of Fame election. And this year there are 23 guys on the ballots, and I just want to spend a little time discussing the merits of some of these guys and whether or not they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And the Baseball Hall of Fame is, in my opinion, probably the greatest honor one could get in professional sports, but at the same time seems to me that there are a lot of people that would like to widen its horizons, and I don't think that is the best way to go. I mean, being a Hall of Famer means you were great for quite a long time, not merely good, not even just very good, but great. And sometimes I feel like there's pressure just to get in some very good players. So I just want to take a look at some of these guys, and I have them divided up into three categories here. You have 23 guys. You have no, yes, and a good possibility to sort of a possibility. Some of the guys are absolute no's, and if you go to the Major League Baseball website or to ESPN, whatever, you can find the list of candidates for the Hall of Fame. Usually the standard is that you have to have been retired for at least 5 years, and you need to have played at least 10 years. So some of these guys that are absolute no's, and while some of these guys were very good players, and they were decent players, and they were nice players, they just don't stack up to what is a Hall of Famer. These are guys like Harold Baines, Jay Bell, David Cone, Ron Gant, Mark Grace, Don Mattingly, although Don Mattingly is indeed a sentimental choice, especially among Yankee lovers out there. The guys are Jesse Orosco, Dave Parker, Dan Plesac, Alan Trammell, Greg Vaughn, Mo Vaughn, and Matt Williams. A lot of these players had good careers, but not great careers. Some of them had fantastic seasons. Some even won MVPs. Don Mattingly won an MVP. Mo Vaughn won an MVP. Harold Baines had a lot of home runs and a lot of RBIs, but as a designated hitter, never hit more than 30 home runs in a season. Alan Trammell, nice player for the Tigers all those years, but again, good, not great. The guys who are absolute yeses, in my view, for this year, Rickey Henderson first. Rickey Henderson, this is his first year on the ballot. He is easily a first ballot Hall of Famer. What can you say? Probably the greatest leadoff hitter of all time. Over 2,000 walks, over 2,000 runs scored, all-time leader in stolen bases, led off a game 81 times with the home run, stole over 100 bases a few times, scored over 100 runs several times, walked over 100 times several times, and just really is the gold standard of leadoff men. And there's not really anyone like him since or even before him. The others are, I have Bert Blyleven going into the Hall of Fame, and this has taken some time for him, but I truly think that he does deserve it. And while we'll get into other guys that have similar numbers to him, Blyleven, he won 287 games in his career. He also struck out 3,700 men. which is 5th all time. Yes, he lost 240 games or so, maybe closer to 250, but he also threw 60 shutouts in his career, which is a mind-boggling statistic considering that nowadays we're lucky if over the span of a decade the entire league has 60 shutouts, and that's for all 30 teams put together. Yes, it's true, Bly Levin only won 20 games one time in his career. But you also look at the overall picture and the teams that he played for. He had an incredibly low ERA, which means he got zip run support. Nothing. The other one whom I think deserves to get into the Hall of Fame, and this is his last opportunity as part of the Writers Association, that's Jim Rice. I feel that Rice has been getting the shaft over the last few years. Last year he got about 72% of the vote, and he needed 75% of the writers' ballots to gain election. And really, I think that this is finally going to be the year for him. His numbers, look at the era that he played. He had 8 times with 100 runs driven in. He's won an MVP, had 3 home run titles, and in an era where league leaders might have hit 35, 40 home runs. You compare that to someone like, say, Mark McGwire, who, because of his stubborn refusal to answer questions, is probably not going to get into the Hall of Fame, at least not while he is on the eligibility list of the writers. But McGwire only drove in 100 runs 7 times in his career, and Rice did it 8 times. And before McGwire got himself into trouble by refusing to talk about the past, he was considered a cinch first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, he hit 70 home runs in a season. Yeah, he had almost 600 home runs in his career. But really, McGwire was a one-dimensional tool in the field, or excuse me, at the plate. Whereas Jim Rice was a run producer. He could do more than just drive the ball over the fence. Now the other guys who are close, but the close but no cigar category, we have guys like Andre Dawson. Andre Dawson, very good player for a long time, but really only one great season in that 1987 season when he played with a chip on his shoulder after signing the one-year deal with the Cubs. Won the MVP for pretty much a lower second division type team. Tommy John, yes, Tommy John won 288 games, but you look at numbers over the years, it took him, really almost 30 years to do so, and that's a lot. Toward the end, he was dragging along. Guys like Dale Murphy, and not quite enough to put him over the edge. Lee Smith is the type where the save, he retires the all-time leader in saves, but it is an overrated statistic. Never the dominant guy. I was in favor of someone like Jack Morris, actually, but looking at his numbers, I think he gets by more on reputation for his postseason pitching rather than overall. And Tim Raines, I think, will eventually get in, since he had to play second fiddle to Rickey Henderson through his years in the 80s. But I think as time goes on, there will be a newfound appreciation for what Tim Raines did despite his cocaine habits and so forth. All right, well, this concludes our second episode of the Sports Wilderness. We hope to catch you again next week. Thank you for listening, and have a good one.